All right, what's going on, everyone? Let me get hooked up here. This is Dr. Chad Kuntz, a special edition really for the Primetime podcast. This is Jackie Womble's here.
Yes.
We're at her location, so thanks so much for letting me kind of swing over here to your location. This is awesome.
Of course.
We're talking about dietitian, nutrition. It's kind of classy because we're right in your kitchen, so I think that all makes sense, right?
Yeah.
She specializes in wellness and nutrition, and really we're going to cover the overarching topics with recovery and rehab and nutrition because our clients are constantly asking us. They're kind of like, as I said earlier, they're getting hurt, and now they're like, all right, I really got to get my stuff together. I want to start feeling better, looking better, and oh yeah, I've gained 20 pounds around the midsection and all that. So appropriately so, I think people are trying to kind of get everything together. But as you know, the field of nutrition and dietitian is just, there's so much to it. So if it's okay with you, I've got some questions that my clients have asked me to ask you. And we'll kind of dip into that. So before we do, if you don't mind, just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about who you are and what, made you want to become a dietitian.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everybody. So I grew up a competitive athlete, primarily gymnastics, and I also had a mother who is still a practicing registered dietitian. So that kind of introduced me to the world of nutrition, and I was really able to feel the effects of nutrition on performance. And so growing up, I always wanted to be, I love to teach, I love to move my body, and I also love the science of all of those things. And so whenever I was looking into, what I wanted to do in life, I started off as a kinesiology major, and then I picked up dietetics within that time frame because I couldn't choose one over the other. I thought that, I want to help people get healthy, and I want to interpret that science of how we move our body and what food does in our body. And so I couldn't pick one over the other, so I just decided to major in both. And so I became an exercise physiologist and registered dietitian. And now I get to basically take the science and interpret it for the average consumer and help them navigate through all of the craziness that's out there on the internet these days and really figure out what works for the individual. So
I love that your background is strongly rooted in science. There's a lot of, I love this term I heard it the other day, Mickey Mouse stuff going on out there.
Quackery.
Foo-foo stuff, quackery. There's so much out there, more than ever.
Yeah.
Everyone has a voice, which is kind of good and bad at this point, right? Because we'll just throw Instagram out there. Like, all of a sudden, you're an expert, right? If you've got 50,000 likes and you look good and you've got maybe some celery in a dish, you're an expert.
You can know how to take a picture.
You know how to take a picture. You're now an expert, right? So we need people like you providing education out there, like you said, that grounds people through the research, and then you can kind of analyze it for them and speak it to them in layman's terms. So
yeah, and it's so important because of things like Instagram and all of the social media out there. And it's great that people are taking a hold of their health and they really are interested in nutrition, but that doesn't mean that we have to follow everything that somebody else is doing. I think it's really important to find an expert in the field. Whatever you're doing, find somebody who spent the time to understand how the body works that can then interpret those things, because otherwise you're going to be putting yourself through misery trying to figure out what works for you if you don't know what you're doing and you're listening to the latest trend.
True.
And you're trying to fill yourself up on celery juice. Like,
so true. Exactly.
It's not going to happen. And so always find somebody that that works for you, and don't try to do it alone.
I can't tell how many people are getting hurt from YouTube videos or Instagram stuff too.
Like working out from what they're doing.
Well, I'm kind of like, why did you feel like you needed to do that? I saw my favorite whoever do that.
Who's in great shape and has zero injuries.
They've probably spent their life doing that type of similar movement.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, so it's kind of similar on both angles.
Yeah.
We're in the information era, which is good and bad. What's good is that we can provide you really strong education right now from a licensed and registered dietitian who can really help answer these questions. And let's kind of dive into it. So one of the first questions we had is, how can people expedite their recovery with proper nutrition? A lot of our clients are 40s, 50s, getting a little bit older, and they're noticing it's taking longer to recovery. So they're kind of wondering, what can they do on a nutritional front to help them kind of quickly recover, whether it's the deep tissue work that I might do or the intense exercise that they're not used to.
Right. Yeah, so I think there's a few things to think about whenever you're thinking about recovering, and if it's a specific injury at a specific site. So understanding they're probably going to see you or another physical therapist who is working on that injury. basically all the blood flow is going there to help recover. And with recovery naturally comes inflammation. It's our body's natural response, and that's how our bodies recover, is that they send all the blood flow to that area, and so it's inflamed. And so what we want to do is target that inflammation. While the inflammation's good, we don't want chronic inflammation. So whenever we're talking recovery, we usually talk about things to reduce inflammation. And so from a nutritional standpoint, of course, rest is huge for that, but doing things that are anti-inflammatory, so your fresh fruits and vegetables, limiting your fried foods and things that are inflammatory to you. So traditionally, pretty much everybody is, fresh fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, high fiber, carbohydrates, things like that. Dairy, if you are not, if you're intolerant to dairy, then that would be an inflammatory food for you, but that's not everybody. So if you can tolerate dairy, that's really important from a bone standpoint and really strengthening your bones. And then the same thing, if you're intolerant to gluten, that's another common one, that would be an inflammatory food for you, so you would want to eliminate that. But if you can tolerate it, then just make sure you're getting high fiber, carbohydrates, and things like that. Some specific foods that you could focus on are things like your berries, your dark leafy greens, and you can use frozen berries as well.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Those are just as great. And then tart cherry juice is something that has been really researched in the athletic world.
Oh, cool.
To help speed up recovery. And so that's something that there's no reason why the average recreational athlete can't take that as well. You can get dried tart cherries at really any grocery store, or you could do the tart cherry juice, and you could mix that in your smoothie with the berries and
I was
things
just gonna
like
say,
that.
how do you get it down?
If you're not a fan, then you can certainly mix it in a smoothie, or just hold your nose and drink it.
Do what you got to do, right?
But that's not the only thing that you can do. Another thing that you can also start, and I think this is healthy for anybody to do, and honestly, all of these tips, even if you don't have an injury, I think it makes sense to do it, because just from stress alone in the average American, we're all dealing with chronic inflammation. And so these things are great to do even if you're not recovering from an injury specifically. But taking collagen is a really good one.
Like pills or supplements? Or
either, whatever works for you. So what collagen does is it helps your body, because your body naturally produces collagen, and so if you ingest collagen, it will help your body continue to produce. As you get older, your body produces less of it.
Okay.
And so if you continue to ingest it through, collagen powder, or you could take a supplement, a pill, or a form, things like that, it will help your body continue to produce it. And the key with taking collagen is to take it with vitamin C. Only about 100 to 200 milligrams at a time, though, of vitamin C.
Oh, wow.
Has been shown to help the absorption of collagen in
That's
your
awesome.
body.
I had no idea on that one.
Yeah, so tart cherry juice, collagen powder with vitamin C, and then your fresh fruits and vegetables, dark leafy greens, berries, things like that will all help.
Can you find collagen naturally just through food, or is that something that has to be supplemented?
So it comes from animal sources. So, and you'll see a lot of bone broth lately. That's been very trendy, but it's a good trend.
Bone broth?
Yeah, so bone broth is really great in soups and stews and things like that. It's not going to be salty like your normal like chicken broth and things like that, so you usually need to season it a little bit, but you can get that at any grocery store too.
Wow.
It's usually a little bit gelatinous. It kind of looks gross, to be honest. But once it's heated, it's in a liquid form. So some people, like if you're not a fan of bone broth and taking things like that, it's easy. I actually put collagen powder in my coffee, and it's really fine.
Oh, really?
So it dissolves really easily, and it doesn't taste like anything. If you're just to put it in water and drink it, I mean, you might taste it a little bit. It's not that great. I'm not big on taking like powders and things like that. I like the good taste of food, and so if I can taste it, I'm not going to do it.
Me too.
But collagen is one that I could get behind because I was able to put it in my coffee.
So you're telling me I need to put bone broth with my tart cherry juice and mix it up and then knock it down? Right,
that'll be like a recovery shot. We should design that.
Next level right there. Next level recovery.
Right. You'll be recovered in like a week.
and mentally insane maybe at the same time, trying to force that stuff down, but either way, right?
Exactly.
That's kind of funny because one of our questions we had from our clients was, what can people do to keep their inflammation as low as possible? And kind of like you said, you need a little bit of that, right? Like when we're working out, we're almost trying to recreate some inflammation. We don't want too much or too little.
Right.
But I want to know, can you actually test for it? Like, is there ways for people listening right now, can they come to you and get tested to see, like, I think I'm insensitive to gluten or sensitive to gluten. Can they come in and just kind of really see objectively where they stand with that?
Yeah, so we can administer a test. It's called an MRT test. And what that does is it tracks the mediators in the body that cause inflammation in you specifically. So it is a blood test. We send it off to a lab.
Nice.
And they bring it back and they test over 100 different foods and what you could potentially be reactive to. And so it's not 100% perfect, but no blood test really is when it comes to our food allergies or food intolerances. And so this it gives us an idea of where to start.
Perfect.
And so a lot of the foods that are tested are things that they're healthy foods. It doesn't, just because you eat healthy and super clean, that doesn't mean that you can't be reactive to a food. And so I have some patients who, watermelon is a trigger for them and causes inflammation in their body. Iceberg lettuce is one that could cause inflammation. And so it really just depends on the individual. And inflammation is something that also is one of the causes for migraine headaches.
Oh, wow.
And as well as IBS, things like that, other GI issues. And so finding, if you have these issues, then and you feel like you've tried everything, sometimes it's good to take it a step further to really see what's going on internally, and then we can find out what's causing you symptoms that you can eliminate.
It's funny you said watermelon. I actually had a nice older lady. She had this test done, and watermelon was it. And I think, you were usually working with her. Yeah. And I was like, wow. And she was like, oh my God, I have that all the time. And I think that's really helped, like a simple little thing like that, So the next step I want to go into, another question I had from one of my clients to ask you was, how important is proper timing of foods before, during, and after exercise? Now, it's a somewhat vague, but kind of do the best you can to dip into that a little bit.
So this question, I think it depends on the level of competitiveness of the athlete or person. And so in competitive athletes, nutrient timing is very important. Because they're always moving their body, the recovery time is limited, and getting the right nutrients at the right time is really important. For the average recreational athlete, it's not as important as we once thought.
Okay.
So that window, that anabolic window that we always say, 60 minutes after a workout, make sure you get it in, or else you're not gonna build the muscle like you should. That's kind of been proven otherwise, that it's not as important, that window is actually a lot longer than we once thought.
Okay.
And so with that being said, the important thing to think about is making sure you're fueled. So if you're working out and you're not fueled correctly, you're putting yourself at risk for injury. And you could get hurt. And if you're not recovering, if you're not eating after your workout, then you could also increase your risk for injury, only because we need to fuel our bodies to move. Nice. And so if you have an average healthy diet, you eat, 3 meals a day, 2 snacks, or whatever works for you, you really don't have to work on those little windows that you have. Eating your meal a couple hours before a workout is fine. Eating your dinner after your workout is okay. With that being said, though, getting protein consistently throughout the day has been shown to be more beneficial in your body uptaking that protein than the average American diet. We eat high carbs in the morning, high carbs in the mid morning, late morning, and then we have a lot of protein at lunch and a lot of protein at dinner, and we kind of overload protein in the ends of the day.
Oh, sure.
So what you want to try to do is take the amount of protein that you should be eating and divide it evenly throughout the day. And so your body is consistently being fed protein as it needs it throughout the day and not just at night.
Perfect.
So all of those things, it's not something to stress out about if you don't get that protein shake within 30 minutes of your workout. But as long as you're going to be eating a couple hours after your workout, you should be good.
It totally used to be me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was even as recent as grad school. I could get a workout in, I would like freak out if I didn't get my protein drink or whatever it is within like an hour. I was like,
'cause you're like, it's a waste.
I wasted all that time. I got my butt up early that morning and didn't want to do it and dragged my tail there. And something happened maybe I spilled my drink or something like that. I would like Hulk out on it. So now it's nice to know, especially if you have, it sounds like a good meal before.
Yeah.
It's still kind of in the system. Obviously, you still want to get it in when you can, but not life or death like it feels like sometimes.
Exactly, and it's not a wasted workout by any means. But with that being said, you could still, it's helpful in getting the protein that you need at that time, because otherwise that might be a meal that you would have skipped because you were working out.
Right.
And so it's certainly nothing that you need to Hulk out about.
Oh, I did too. There's several times I can remember.
But I do support having something like that after a workout, just because it's basically another meal for for you to fuel those muscles.
Perfect.
So
that kind of ties into this other question we had for you, and maybe we've already answered it, but this person asked, are there any specific foods that you like best before a really good workout?
Yeah. Again, I will preface this with, it depends on the length of the workout, depends on the type of the workout, but traditionally the best pre-workout is fruit.
Nice.
It's easily digested. If you're eating something within an hour of that workout, anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes, then I would stick to a banana or an apple or orange or something that has good carbohydrates that will be readily available for the workout. If you're consuming food about 2 hours prior, then you could work in a little bit of protein.
Oh, okay, nice. I was going to ask you that.
So peanut butter on a banana, or a couple of crackers with peanut butter on it. You could do a protein shake, or yogurt is a great one as well. If you're doing anything 3 to 4 hours before a workout, then that's where you would want to have just your traditional meal. You can get some fat, worked into that as well. But it would be basically not like a snack size thing. It would be your meal. You do a, carb, protein, vegetable, like you were eating lunch or dinner or whatever it was. So
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it just depends on how soon we're talking right before the workout. That's really it.
So if you don't mind, just expound. Is it because of the digestion time, or maybe you can tell them a little bit about the process, how we have to store that as energy before it's usable? Is it something along those lines for that reason?
Exactly. So when our bodies are working out, basically all the blood flow is going to the muscles that are being worked, and not your stomach and GI tract. So you don't want a full belly when you're working out, because then you're going to feel sick.
Yeah.
And if you eat, you want to give your body enough time to digest the food so it can be used as energy. Our bodies can only store a certain amount of carbohydrates at a time. And so in order to use those, we need them to be readily available.
Perfect.
We use carbohydrates when we're just sitting here talking, when we're thinking, and so it's not like you have to work out to use the carbohydrates, and so that's why you want to make sure you're fueling beforehand. And working in that protein and that fat hours prior, that just makes that energy last a little bit longer, because protein helps us fill up. The fiber and fat and all of those things help us stay full, and they stabilize our blood sugars.
I think people really need to hear that, because there's a lot of kind of anti-carb Christ things going on out there nowadays. Like, no, keep the carbs away. And I had a gentleman come in the other day, and just generally speaking about it, I was like, I think you should get further help. But it sounds like you need to just increase a lot more carbs, because he was just dropping super low, and he was feeling like he just hit the wall as soon as he got in there and did a few curls. I was like, you probably just need to bump up, because he was trying really hard to lose weight, and we all want it right away too. I'm like, the reality is you probably need to increase it a little bit more.
Yeah. So what happens if you are limiting carbs? So you haven't eliminated them. You're just low carb. Your muscles store some carbohydrates, and your glycogen stores in your muscles. And so if you don't have enough glucose in their bloodstream to use for energy, it's going to go to those muscles, and they're going to get tired pretty quickly because you don't really have a ton of energy in there, and you don't have energy readily available to get through your workout.
Right.
And so that's a lot of times whenever I'm working with clients, specifically athletes, that's a very common thing that we see. They want to drop fat and gain muscle.
Right.
Doing no carb is not the way to do it. It's counterintuitive because
Right.
you need to work those muscles hard enough to build muscle. You're not going to build muscle by depriving yourself of food.
Perfect.
And you're not going to build muscle by feeding your muscles protein. You're going to build muscle by working really hard, breaking those muscle fibers so then they can build up and gain muscle. We could talk about that, how you build muscle. And what we're trying to do. So you want to have a good, hard workout, lifting the weight that you want to be lifting, and you need energy to get through that. And
Absolutely.
so it's a healthy balance that I work with my clients on, finding how many carbohydrates do you need to get through the workout, do you need to get through the day, but not too many to where you're going to feel like you're gaining weight.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So, yeah.
So then this next question, we're going to take a pretty hard turn here. Gut health has been something that has been largely talked about. I feel like now more than ever. I don't really even remember it 5, maybe 10 years ago, but it seems like it's all just kind of popping up. And this particular person of mine wanted to know, would probiotics help your gut health when recovering?
Yeah, so this topic, probiotics, is something that, or really gut health, I should say, is something that it's been studied for a long time. We're finding a ton of really great research lately with some good recommendations on various probiotics to take. And what we're understanding is that the gut is so important. We call it the second brain, honestly. The gut basically talks to the brain. And so we know that. I have not seen studies specifically linking gut health to recovery and injury. That doesn't mean that it doesn't help. I think that it's just such a new area of research that I haven't seen studies or heard any recommendations on that yet.
Okay.
But we do know that having a healthy gut is important to living a healthy life and just being healthy in general. And so probiotics can certainly help with that. So that's, it might not be helping directly with your injury. It will help you be healthier and reduce inflammation and just feel better, really. And we do know that it does contribute to your brain health and to your heart health. And so just from that alone, it's certainly something that you should consider if you don't already.
Really, it's its own topic. It's a huge. We could probably have many. You probably have a whole series just on that. So I think that's kind of well said in a short Cliff Note version on that.
Yeah, there's so much to be said about gut health.
So we'll put that on pause.
Yeah.
And this kind of fishtails off it a little bit. Are enzymes necessary to help get the most nutrition out of every meal? If they really want to get the most protein, the best carbs, would enzymes be helpful in that scenario?
Do you see this question? Do a lot of your clients ask this question?
I've got a few.
Have you?
Yeah, poke me with that one.
That's interesting. So our bodies are so smart, as we know, and they really do a great job of keeping us healthy. And if we're doing the right things to our bodies, then they will, in return, take care of us. And one of the primary things that they need to do is digest our food.
Yeah.
And so if your pancreas is functioning correctly, and if you are the average healthy individual, enzymes are not necessary to do that. Yeah, usually enzymes are recommended for if you've got some type of, pancreatitis or any type of issue going on internally like that. People with cystic fibrosis often have to take enzymes. And so it's usually if you have an underlying medical condition that you would need to take enzymes. But for the average adult, that's really not
Save yourself some money if you don't need it.
Absolutely.
Unless you've got, like she said, some of those conditions going on, you've been diagnosed per doctor, save it.
Yeah, exactly.
Use it for your tart cherry juice instead.
Yes, get that inflammation under control, and then your body should start feeling better.
Yeah. Nice. Next, we got just a couple more from our clients. How much proteins do you suggest for those recovering from an injury per day?
So this one depends on the severity of the injury. If you had, underwent some major surgery, something like that, you're going to need more to recover. If it's like a torn muscle or just a strained muscle or something like that, then you might not need as much.
Yeah.
Generally, we say anywhere from 1.2 grams per kilogram to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight And so, and that's grams per kilogram, not pound.
Good clarification.
I know a lot of people will do 2 grams per pound, and that is just
a lot.
Way too much.
Yeah.
For the average healthy adult, it's recommended to have about 0.8 to 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. And again, that's divided up evenly throughout the day. So if you are injured, then you can bump that up to 1.2 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight.
Get your calculator, do a little math.
Yeah, you can do that.
So if I'm the average just person, based on your numbers, we'll call myself 200 pounds to round down or whatever. So roughly 100 grams is decent.
200 divided by 2.2. So you're about 91 kilograms. So yeah, you're about 110 grams a day on the low end of that.
Yep.
And how many meals do you eat a day?
Around 4.
So that's about the recommended amount. So you would eat about anywhere from, I said, 25 to 30 grams per meal of protein.
And that came out to about 27 right there.
Yeah.
So perfect. So that's a good estimate to kind of go back to the drawing board. I like how you said to the intensity of kind of the injury too, because it makes sense. If there's like kind of a whole body accident, there's a lot more recovery that needs to happen. Probably okay to kind of bump that up.
Oh yeah. And if it's more than one injury, that's another good point. Then you're going to need more than that as well, because your body is just it needs all of the nutrients, and not just protein. I mean, it needs carbohydrates, it needs fat, it needs your omega-3 fatty acids. That is a really good one I should have mentioned above about that will help with inflammation.
Oh, nice.
It's really great for brain health if you've undergone a concussion of any sorts. Omega-3 fatty acids has been shown to help improve concussive clients.
Perfect.
So that's another thing to think about. But yeah, and if you have undergone these intense injuries, definitely see a nutrition professional. Of course, preferably a registered dietitian who has the credentials and knows, how to target, not just somebody who is, has a big following, who's offering services. So it's really important to maximize and optimize your recovery time.
Let me throw this at you, and it kind of ties into the next question about intermittent fasting. Generally speaking, do you feel like people need to be hypercaloric, or those who should take in more calories than, I don't get too detailed on that, but hypercaloric or hypocaloric?
For those with injuries or
those with injuries recovering.
Hypercaloric, absolutely. Yeah. So we underfeed ourselves all the time. And I think that it sounds wrong because Americans are traditionally overweight and are obese.
Right.
So you would think it's because we are overeating. And granted, yes, a lot of people do overeat and binge eat, and there's a ton of different reasons as to why, we are here today with the obesity epidemic that we have. But what we think we need is often not enough, especially for people who are very conscious of what they eat. They feel like they underfeed themselves.
That's true.
So especially when you are recovering from an injury, you need to make sure your body's burning more calories because it's trying to heal the injury. And so if we're trying to maintain weight, we absolutely need to stay in a hypercaloric state where we're eating a little bit more calories.
Such a good point. Again, because there's so many people that come to me and they're like, all right, it's really time to get my stuff together. I want to, lose 20 pounds. And so they try dropping everything as we're working out, and I'm working with them. And I just, I feel like if they knew, hey, get your healthy carbs and fats and proteins in and actually go a little bit more, you'll probably recover a little bit quicker. I know when I've really tried dropping, and I've done 3 bodybuilding shows, it did not go well, man. It was awful. I couldn't work out nearly as hard. I actually just had to drop my intensity was huge folds, like in the gym, because I just couldn't recover from it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that whenever somebody gets hurt and they realize that they have to go see a doctor to get better, it's like, okay, it's kind of like a reality check for them.
It is, yeah.
And they say, okay, now I need to do this and this to get healthy.
That's
it's
right.
kind of like a New Year's resolution. You just feel like it's a new beginning for you. And while that's great that you're feeling motivated to get healthy and you're taking the first step by seeing, a physical therapist like yourself, that's not necessarily the time to lose weight. Because you're there because you have an injury, and that's what you need to be focusing on is recovering from that injury.
Yeah.
And ideally, you would be eating your, good carbohydrates, your healthy fats, and your lean proteins and things like that to help with recovery, but not so much focused on the weight loss. And so I think that's one point to think about is that whenever you are injured and you're recovering, put your energy into getting better.
Nice.
And that means focusing on what Chad tells you to do, or what, you know, your physical therapist tells you that you need to do. Making sure you're eating healthfully, but that does not mean, you know, getting all these supplements and losing all of this weight. We're not talking about weight right now. We're talking about recovering from an injury.
Perfect.
And so I think that's important to know. I also want to say that even if you aren't recovering from an injury, and you are wanting to lose weight, there's a time and a place for that. And I still would not recommend you focusing on your calories to do that, because I think that's counterintuitive. I think that it makes you're focused on the wrong thing whenever you're focusing on how many calories you're ingesting versus how good you feel, how satisfied you are, those types of things.
Nice. So for those that do already practice intermittent fasting and they're recovering from an injury, being what we've just said, I mean, what kind of advice would you tell them?
So for people who are already doing intermittent fasting?
And you could even start with someone who's interested about doing intermittent fasting, maybe because it's a weight loss technique that they feel like they can start to do.
Yeah, so the research on intermittent fasting is pretty fascinating, and there is some good studies out there showing some positive results for various things. Recovery from injury is not one that I would start intermittent fasting with. Again, it goes back to everything that we just said. We want to make sure we're fueling that body at the right time with the right foods, because your body needs those calories, and we don't want to put it in extra work to tap into fat stores and things like that.
Nice, good
we
point.
want to give it the food that it needs to give the energy that it needs to recover from the injury. And so I wouldn't recommend the starting intermittent fasting if you are, going through an injury. That's not really something that I would do. However, if you did something like the 12 to 12, which frankly, it's what we've been recommending for my entire life, where you don't eat, after a certain time, and then you wake up. It's giving your body the time to rest.
Right.
So say you have dinner at 6 o'clock, you don't eat anything after, let's say 7, and then you wake up in the morning, you eat breakfast around 7. Something like that is pretty typical and what we should be doing anyway. And they're now calling that intermittent fasting, but it's really just the way we should be eating. These longer 16, 8, whatever, all those different fastings, I wouldn't take it that far. And then once you're recovered and you're feeling good, then you can have that conversation. But that's really not something I would start a client on right away whenever we're talking about recovering.
Perfect. So. And then last question, at least from our clients, would it benefit everyone from taking a multivitamin when recovering and rehabbing?
It certainly doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Nice.
So multivitamin, I always call it like an insurance policy. It's nice. There if you need it, and if you don't, you're just going to excrete it out the body.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't necessarily. I would not discourage taking a multivitamin. You could look at things. You would want to be tested for various deficiencies in, like, vitamin D is one that you might want to take a supplement, but not unless you know that you're deficient in it. And so I would ask your doctor to, if you did a blood panel, you can always look into that. But just an average, normal multivitamin, it's absolutely something you could do. I would do that, as well as the omega-3 fatty acid supplementation, because those are two that are very promising in reducing inflammation, and then they don't hurt to take.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you happen to have one that you like a brand? Because I know there's a lot of brands out there nowadays.
Yeah. So I like Nordic Naturals. I'm not sure if you've heard of those, actually. But they have they've got vitamin C supplements as well, little gummies that are the right milligram. A lot of vitamin C is, I think, like 500 milligram, but like if you're doing it to take with the collagen, then you only want 100 to 250 milligrams, and so I think that's how much that is. I do the Nordic Naturals omega-3 fatty acids as well. And then Now Foods, just NOW, they have a ton of different supplements. They've got pretty much everything. They even have essential oils, which is...
Wow.
Yeah, they've got everything, but they're another good
Sweet.
Brand. They test everything, and I believe in their product, because a lot of companies out there, they just...
There's a lot,
There's so many, and you don't know what to navigate through and what to look for. But Now Foods are a really reputable brand, and they go through so many different tests on all of their products to make sure that they're natural and or that they're pure and there's nothing like laced in there, because a lot of times you'll see on a supplement label that it's free of XYZ.
Yeah.
But if they don't have the right certifications, if they don't have the right processes in place that they're being put through and tested every single batch, then certain batches could be laced with other things, but you don't know because they're not being tested. And they'll
randomly, scary.
Yeah, I mean, and testing agencies will randomly pull
Oh, wow.
Bottles of things and protein powders and things like that and test them, and they will have things in them that they say they don't have. So yeah, it's important to find a reputable company that does the testing.
I even saw on the news the other day a football player got pulled to the side. He was just taking a regular supplement. It had stuff that should not have been in there, and he was like fined and banned and all this really ugly stuff. It's happening a lot.
Yeah, it could ruin people's careers because they're not following the right protocol. Working with athletes, you have to follow, it needs to be informed sport and NSF approved, and that just means it's been through the right testing.
Nice.
And so if you don't have those certifications on the labels of of the supplements that you're taking, then we say no, we don't even risk it.
Yeah.
There's even protein bars. I had a company who sent me a ton of samples, and some of them are fine and they look great. There's whey protein in them, and they look like great protein bars, but there's one bar that is it has guarana and different like caffeine boost in it.
Oh,
and it
wow.
says that it hasn't been tested through the FDA. And I told him, I was like, I'm sorry, I can't give these to my athletes because I just can't take the chance that there's something in them, because it could ruin their careers.
Right.
So yeah, it's something we take very seriously.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we covered a lot of ground. And for those of you listening who are not only coming back from an injury or who have been dealing with a chronic state of an injury or just want to live really healthier, happier life, I wanted to kind of dig into what it takes to kind of get started with you. I've got the website already linked in this Facebook Live we're doing right now. If you caught us on YouTube, look down below. Or if you're listening to this podcast, look in the show notes. But how can someone get started with you, and what does that process look like for them to work with you?
So I do most of my consultations through telenutrition. So it's a virtual platform. It's all HIPAA compliant, but you can do it there from the comfort of your own home.
Nice.
And so we usually will do a quick introductory call just to see if I'm the right person to work with you and to see if I can actually help you, or if you need to be referred somewhere else. So we'll do that exploratory call first, and then from there I will recommend what I think you might need to help, and we'll kind of see where you're at. I usually do I'll work with the client to tell me what you're willing to do, how many changes are you wanting to make. I usually like to start very small because we'll see a lot more progress and success that way. We just have a conversation. We see what works best for each other, and then we go from there. And
Sweet.
I am more than happy to meet in person. My office is in Ballantyne in the Charlotte area. But if you're outside of the area, or if you just live in Uptown because you don't want to deal with the traffic, then we can meet right in the comfort of your own home, and we're just as successful that way.
That's awesome.
You can follow me on social media platforms as well, but I think if you put the website in the show notes, then you can find me that way.
Nice.
So,
Are these like hour-long calls, and could they expect maybe once a week, once a month, once a year?
Any of that, yeah.
Okay,
so it honestly depends. I'll have people that come to me and they just want to know if what they're doing is right and if it makes sense. And I'll say, yeah, and then we'll have, check-in calls monthly, even quarterly, just to kind of check in. Some people just want me there as their accountability coach. And so we do that where we'll, first we'll meet every other week. Sometimes we'll meet weekly. And so it depends on where you're at in your journey, what you're looking for. We go through phases. Sometimes we just want to focus on something for 30 days. And so I might see you once a week. I typically don't see clients more than once a week. It's usually a little bit too much, and you need some time to kind of let things sink and put things into practice.
Right.
But I'll see you from anywhere from once a week to twice a week to once every 3 months, whatever it is. And the initial call will be so before we get started and we're just trying to learn about each other and what works, then it'll be a quick call for you, 15 minutes, just to kind of understand each other. And then if we decide to work with each other, then the first call is usually about an hour to an hour and a half.
Okay.
And then depending on where we're at, if we're doing a lot of education, then we might have weekly calls for an hour. If they're just check-ins, accountability check-ins, then they'll probably be around 20, 30 minutes.
Perfect. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
No reason, guys, not to give it a shot and learn. You've learned so much from her already, so I definitely advise you to take you up on that call. And we probably have to do something like this again because we cover a lot of topics. So thanks so much for hopping on today.
Let us know what you guys want to hear about.
Yeah, thank you guys. And just put in the comments below if there's any other thoughts you had for next time. We're out. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.